Hi everyone, this is my Umwelt project. I chose to focus on a penguin, the king penguin specifically, because penguins are some of my favorite animals, so I decided why not do it. So I decided I was going to do an art project because in the type of classes I'm taking, I don't get to do art very often, and so I figured let's do something different than a PowerPoint presentation. So I decided I wanted this to be a mix of painting and collaging. Now, my original idea for the collage was I wanted to kind of collage the background of my painting, kind of into the landscape. But then I realized I didn't really know how to do that, and I didn't know if I would be able to do that. So the plan changed, and I decided to just create a sort of collage frame around the area I was going to be painting. So, what I decided to do with this was to kind of demonstrate the time period in the penguin's life where they're taking care of their young. So, the spring and summer period. So what I did was at the very top, I put a picture of some penguins sitting on eggs that have not hatched yet. Then on the sides of the painting, near the top, I put some baby penguins, some adults with the baby penguins. Then going further down the sides, some adults by themselves. Some of them are walking down to the ocean, I would presume. Then I have some penguins diving, and then at the very bottom, I have the bioluminescent lanternfish that they like to catch. I also included some orcas down at the bottom because that is one of the predators they have to watch out for, and some skuas at the top, which are birds that will come and eat their young, so they have to watch out for those as well. So the painting aspect is where I really decided to focus in on the senses. Which, side note, before I go into that, you've probably already noticed that my canvas is yellow. That was an artistic choice that ended up doing nothing for me in the end, so you can just pretend it is white if you would like. But yes, I decided to bring in the senses for the painting part. So the first one that I wanted to focus on was sight. Penguins have really amazing sight. They can see above and below water really well. And so I wanted to demonstrate this by not quite painting in water, but by kind of extending the mountains and cliffs downwards and then just separating water and land by a thin line. So I made sure I painted some fish at the bottom. I made sure those were visible when you're looking at the painting. I made sure those cliff lines were as clear as I could make them. And then, yeah, at the very end, I just added a line dividing between land and water. Fun fact, penguins cannot see red, so I did not include any red tones in the painting. The only warm color I used was yellow, and that was for some details on the penguin and to emphasize some chicks, which I'll get to in a minute. So the next sense that I focused on was hearing, because the king penguin also has really great hearing, and they're really sensitive to predator sounds, so much that they can identify between the sounds of a friend and foe, even in their sleep. So yes, you might have noticed we've switched to a different video now that the painting is finished. Before I go on, here's just that line I mentioned that's kind of dividing land and water. And yes, you can see the fish down here, the cliffs over here. And to demonstrate sound, I have these little lines right here to indicate that our little penguin friend right here is aware of the predator. And then going over here to look at the chicks, I outlined them in yellow because I wanted it to be obvious that maybe these are the chicks of this penguin, and he can identify them really easily through sound and smell. So again, I have these lines over here to demonstrate maybe they're making noise. It's a call that our penguin over here is going to recognize, even though these chicks probably look like a lot of the other chicks. And then they can also identify their kin through smell, which I tried to do something and it didn't work out. So those paint smudges on the body, just pretend those aren't there. So I guess the smell is just these dots kind of around it. But anyway, hearing and smell is how the penguins can identify their young. So as for taste, penguins don't actually have taste buds on their tongues. So supposedly they can only taste salt and sour, but it's honestly debatable whether they can even taste those at all because of their lack of taste buds. So to demonstrate this, I wanted to make these fish look really dull and kind of unappetizing, even though in real life they look pretty cool and detailed. But yeah, that's why in the painting I didn't really put a lot of detail into them just to demonstrate that, it's not going to taste very extravagant to our penguin friend. So yeah, that is how I chose to identify sight, hearing, smell, and taste. As for touch, when I was doing my research, that was the one sense I really couldn't find any information about, and that leads me to believe that the sense of touch just isn't very important in the king penguin's life. It's just not a sense they use very often. The only situations that I can think of it being important is obviously up here when they're incubating their eggs, they have to sit on them to keep them warm. And then if there were to ever be a heavy snowstorm or a blizzard, they huddle together to keep warm. But on the day-to-day basis, once their eggs are hatched and they're traveling back and forth to the water to get food, touch isn't a sense they use very often. But yeah, that's the piece. Just some extra little details. I have some penguins walking down to the water over here. Obviously they are going to get food for their chicks, and then over here some penguins and some chicks, which obviously are not in great detail. They're meant to be far away, but that's what that is. So yeah, I hope you guys learned something new today.